The desert of Ngari Prime stretched endlessly under twin suns, a pale gold wasteland where heat shimmered like ghosts of the past. Malik Jaro adjusted the filters of his exosuit, sand hissing against his visor, as if whispering secrets from buried worlds. The Federation called this place a mineral opportunity. To Malik, it was silence made solid, a reminder of how small one man could feel beneath two merciless skies. He had been alone for 7 days, mapping ore veins, running diagnostics, and recording mineral data for the Federation's Survey Corps. His ship, Uhuru's Light, stood anchored amid dunes like a silver tooth buried in sand. Inside its metal walls, the air smelled faintly of ozone and spice oil. A small comfort Malik carried from New Lagos, where his grandmother once told him, "Every journey you take, child, take a piece of home with you." That morning, as he calibrated his drones, the sensors pinged an anomaly, movement in the western quadrant. He frowned. No life signs were registered within 100 clicks, he muttered. Curiosity tugged at him stronger than caution. He followed the signal through whipping dust until he saw it, a small, collapsed shape half buried in the sand. At first, he thought it was a dying scavenger. But when he brushed away the grit, a gasp escaped him. The creature's skin shimmered faintly with bioluminescent lines, pulsing slow and weak. Its chest rose shallowly. A cub, clearly alien, ribs visible, trembling under the weight of the sun. Malik knelt. "Hey there, little one." His voice cracked through the calm filter. The creature blinked once, its eyes a mirrored silver. Instinct whispered that touching it was forbidden. Federation Law 49.7. No biological interference with unknown species. But another voice spoke louder, his grandmother's again, softer this time. "If you see suffering, you do not walk away. You feed the hungry, even if it's not your kind." He hesitated only a second longer before lifting the cub into his arms. The skin was warm, almost feverish. "For your light as ash," he murmured, wrapping it in his outer cloth. Inside Uhuru's Light, Malik laid the cub on an insulated mat and activated the med scanner. The readings were unstable, body temperature plummeting, dehydration severe. He improvised a saline infusion, adjusting dosage by guesswork. The creature let out a low hum, almost like a groan. Malik froze. "Shh, I got you." "Don't give up on me." Outside, the desert wind howled like something alive. He worked in silence for hours, refilling the infusion line, adjusting temperature, whispering fragments of old Yoruba lullabies under his breath. The sound seemed to calm the creature. When it finally drifted into stillness, Malik sat back, exhausted, sweat pooling beneath his collar. That was when doubt began to creep in. He'd violated Federation protocol. One transmission from his black box recorder, and he could lose his career, even his freedom. He paced the narrow cabin. "What have I done?" he whispered. But then his gaze fell upon the cub, tiny chest rising and falling, faint glow steadying. And for the first time since he'd landed on Ngari Prime, Malik felt purpose beyond duty. He sat by the porthole as dusk deepened into violet shadows. The twin suns sank below the dunes, and the horizon burned red like cooling embers. Malik thought of home, of crowded streets in New Lagos, laughter under neon lanterns, the scent of jollof rice floating from market stalls. He imagined his grandmother watching him from some distant star, smiling at his defiance. "I did what you would have done," he said quietly, "even if they call it wrong." He didn't notice that, miles away, the dunes had begun to shift, dark figures moving silently through the night, drawn by the scent of life returned. But that moment, Malik only knew peace, fragile, fleeting, and real. And before we continue this story, before Malik discovers how one act of mercy will change everything humanity knows about survival, make sure you're subscribed. You won't want to miss what happens when kindness meets consequence beneath the twin suns of Ngari Prime. Morning came to Ngari Prime as a cruel light. The suns rose together, bleeding gold across the dunes, and the heat returned with merciless rhythm. Inside Uhuru's Light, Malik blinked awake to the low hum of the ship's recycler. He turned his head toward the medbay corner. The alien cub still lay there, breathing shallow but steady. Its bioluminescent veins glowed faintly through the cloth he had wrapped it in, soft pulses like a heartbeat from another world. Malik rubbed his eyes, still groggy. "You made it through the night," he said softly. "Guess we both did." His voice was rough, dry from recycled air. He reached for his datapad, checking vitals again. Hydration levels were improving, temperature still unstable. It wasn't much, but it was life. He opened a ration pack, warming a nutrient mix, thinning it to a liquid the cub might digest. The smell reminded him of millet porridge his grandmother used to make. He smiled faintly. "Don't look at me like that," he muttered, half to himself, half to the creature. "This isn't for me." When he brought the mixture close, the cub stirred. Its throat made a soft clicking noise, wary but curious. Malik tilted the cup slowly, letting a drop touch its lipless mouth. A faint vibration rippled through its chest, and it drank. Relief washed through him so strong he had to sit down. "Good. That's good, little one." He exhaled deeply. The silence returned, heavy and vast. Outside, a gust of wind slammed against the hull. The sensors crackled. Malik checked the external feed. Another dust storm was building at the horizon, darker and thicker than before. He'd have to lock down soon. He saved the sensor logs and sat back, letting the quiet stretch. His thoughts drifted to Federation Command. If they knew what he'd done, if they traced the biological anomaly signature, they'd revoke his license, maybe worse. There were entire academies dedicated to teaching restraint in xenobiology. You observe, you do not interfere. Those were the first words drilled into every cadet. But Malik had never been good at silence when compassion called. He stared at the cub. Its breathing steadied, and a strange comfort filled him. For years he had traveled alone, endless surveys, empty worlds, data sent to stations that never wrote back. He'd begun to wonder if exploration had stripped humanity of empathy, leaving only curiosity. The cub's glow dimmed, then brightened again, like a rhythm syncing with his own heartbeat. He took a deep breath. "You remind me of my niece," he said quietly. "Always running, never still." "Maybe that's what you'd be doing if I hadn't found you." A chime interrupted him. "Motion alert." Malik frowned, checking the console. A faint, rhythmic vibration registered outside, just at the edge of the dunes, too regular for wind, too heavy for sand drift. His chest tightened. He switched off the med scanner's light, lowering his voice. "Stay quiet," he whispered, as if the cub could understand. The creature gave a low hum, soft but alert. The sensors pulsed again. Something, or several somethings, were out there. Malik's training returned like a reflex. He initiated partial lockdown, sealing the lower hatch, dimming exterior lights. The hum of the engines masked the sound of shifting sand. He stood by the viewport but saw nothing, only the endless glare of morning heat. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He tried to distract himself, running diagnostics on the ore scanner, but his thoughts kept circling back to the small being on the mat. Saving it had felt right. It still did. But the silence outside had changed. The desert no longer sounded empty. It felt like it was holding its breath. Malik leaned against the wall, exhaustion creeping into his bones. "One thing at a time," he murmured. "First, keep you alive, then figure out what I've gotten us into." The cub made a faint noise, a vibration between a purr and a sigh. Malik smiled, despite the unease twisting in his gut. He didn't yet know that the echo he heard outside wasn't the storm approaching. It was the first ripple of consequence. Something was moving beneath the sands, answering the same instinct that had driven him to mercy. And as the heat deepened and the sky turned white with glare, Malik realized that even compassion had its own gravity. Once you chose it, you couldn't escape the pull. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape carved by the night's fury. The dunes shimmered under the suns like frozen waves, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and scorched sand. Malik hadn't slept. He sat near the cub's resting mat, eyes half open, every sound amplified in the hollow quiet. The hum outside had stopped hours ago, but unease clung to him like dust. He checked the perimeter feed again. The sensors were clear. Still, his instincts whispered otherwise, that same whisper that had guided him to the cub. When he stepped toward the viewport, something shifted at the edge of the horizon. A ripple, then another. The sands moved as if alive. Malik's throat tightened. "Nomusa," he said, calling to his onboard AI. "Enhance external visuals." 10 times zoom! A low chime responded, and the feed sharpened. His heart dropped. Silhouettes, hundreds of them, advancing in a wide formation, silent and deliberate. The shapes were tall, almost graceful, glinting dark beneath the sunlight. "Life forms detected," Nomusa said calmly. 312 entities, approximately 2 meters tall. "Metallic resonance suggests composite armor." Malik stared, pulse racing. 300? He whispered. He looked at the cub, then back at the monitor. No way they just showed up. He forced his mind to steady. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe they were just passing through. But something in their movement, the symmetry, the silence, told him otherwise. They weren't wandering. They were circling. He opened the emergency locker and took out a water canister and a flare pistol. He didn't want to use it. Flares could be misread as aggression, but having it close eased his nerves. Outside, the figures kept coming, until the first ranks reached the perimeter ridge. They stopped in unison, surrounding Uhuru's light in a perfect ring. Then, stillness. Malik swallowed hard. "Nomusa, audio scan." "Receiving low-frequency harmonics," the AI replied. "Pattern resembles vocalization, but too structured to be random." He strained to listen. Through the hum of engines and his own heartbeat, he caught faint tones, deep, rhythmic pulses that seemed to rise from the sand itself. It wasn't speech, not in any human sense. It was communication through vibration. The cub stirred at the sound, its bioluminescent veins flickering rapidly. Malik crouched beside it. "Hey, easy now. You know those sounds, don't you?" The creature lifted its head weakly, releasing a tremor that matched the rhythm outside. The air inside the ship quivered. Malik froze. The vibrations weren't random, they were an answer. Outside, the alien circle shifted. Several figures stepped forward, taller, broader, carrying staffs that shimmered with embedded light. They responded to the cub's pulse with synchronized beats that shook the sand like a heartbeat shared between worlds. Malik whispered, "They're talking to it." He stood slowly, his breath uneven. They came for the cub. Fear clawed at his ribs. What did they think of him? A thief? A desecrator? He'd broken every protocol, and now 300 silent beings surrounded him because of it. He considered locking the ship down, but something deeper, something that felt older than training, stopped him. Running would be an insult, hiding would be worse. He opened the airlock control and placed his hand on the release panel. "Nomusa," he said, voice low. "Keep the medbay sealed. If anything happens to me, protect the cub." "Understood," the AI replied. The hatch hissed. Heat poured in, stinging his face as he stepped onto the sand. The light was blinding, the silence total. The ring of alien hunters stood motionless, their obsidian armor catching the suns like liquid glass. Malik raised both hands slowly, palms open, the universal gesture of peace. "I don't mean harm," he said, knowing they couldn't understand the words. "I only helped." The wind brushed across the dunes, carrying the faint sound of the cub's hum from inside the ship. The figures shifted, their weapons lowering slightly. Malik took one careful step forward, heart pounding. "You hear it, don't you?" he said softly. "Gyorkin." A single alien, the tallest, tilted its head, emitting a tone so low it vibrated through Malik's chest. The others echoed it, surrounding him in a resonance that felt alive. He realized, in awe and terror, that the silence he had feared wasn't hostility. It was judgment. And as the suns climbed higher, the ring of hunters stood unmoving, waiting for something, and perhaps permission, perhaps a sign, while Malik stood between them and the fragile life he'd chosen to save. The silence between Malik and the ring of hunters stretched like a wire ready to snap. The heat pressed down with relentless weight, the suns burning white over the dunes. He could hear his own breath inside the helmet, fast, uneven, too human. Before him 300 alien warriors stood motionless, their obsidian armor flickering with faint reflections of blue and gold. No sound, no gesture, only that rhythmic vibration that seemed to rise from the ground, humming in his bones. He raised his voice, calm but shaking at the edges. "I don't understand your words, but I mean no harm. The cub inside—" He hesitated, then pressed his hand to his chest. Alive. Safe. The tallest hunter, the one who had stepped forward before, lifted a staff etched with glowing symbols. The tip pulsed in a slow pattern. Malik heard a sound follow it, a deep, layered tone like wind passing through hollow stone. The others responded with a harmony of notes that rolled through the air. It wasn't speech, it was conversation in resonance. "Nomusa," Malik whispered, activating his comm. "Try recording those frequencies. Look for recurring patterns, anything resembling syntax." "Analyzing," the AI replied. "Harmonics correspond to structured intervals. Possible language through vibrational exchange." The lead hunter extended its arm. The gesture was deliberate, palm outward, 5 fingers long and jointed differently from Malik's own, skin like dark crystal. Malik mirrored the motion. A faint light pulsed between them, not touching but echoing. Then a sound, soft, guttural, and escaped the alien's throat. It wasn't random. The word carried weight. Malik pointed toward the ship, then to himself. "Human," he said, slow and clear. He repeated it once. "Human." The alien tilted its head, imitating the rhythm with astonishing precision. Man. Its voice was deep, resonant enough to make the sand ripple. Malik blinked in awe. "That's right, yes." He pointed again, this time toward the horizon. "Q." The figure paused, tapping its chest with the staff. "Kithari." The sound rolled like thunder, softened by distance. Malik repeated it carefully. "Kithari." A tremor rippled through the group, a shared resonance, like a choir of approval. For the first time, Malik sensed curiosity rather than threat, but then the staff-bearer turned its gaze toward the ship. The faint hum of the cub inside reached them through the airlock seams, a fragile tone matching the hunter's frequency. The Kithari's armor flickered, their color patterns changing in waves of silver and green. Malik realized they were communicating about the cub. He could feel the urgency in the vibration, protective, reverent. He nodded slowly. "Yes." "The little one." He pressed a hand to his chest again. "Hurt. I helped." The Kithari leader took a step forward, sand crunching softly. Malik felt his muscles tighten, but he didn't retreat. The alien stopped only a meter away and raised a hand toward him. Not to strike, to listen. Its palm hovered just inches from Malik's chest plate, as if feeling for truth. Nomusa's voice came through the comm, quiet and measured. Energy resonance increasing. Suggest non-hostile. Possibly emotional communication. The vibration deepened. Malik's heart pounded against his ribs. For a moment, the sound and his pulse aligned. It was a strange sensation. Intimate, humbling. He wasn't sure if it was communication or judgment. Then, from inside the ship, the cub's hum changed. It became higher, insistent. The Kithari froze, heads tilting toward the sound. Malik turned instinctively, his gut tightening. The creature's voice grew louder, carrying through the hull like a plea. The leader lowered its hand. A single harmonic note resonated from its chest, deep sorrow mixed with relief. The other hunters responded, bowing their heads in perfect unison. The desert trembled. Malik whispered, "You're their kin, aren't you? Their child." The alien's luminous eyes met his. No words, no gestures, but Malik understood. Every tone in the air was grief. He swallowed hard, voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to take. I only meant to help." The Kithari leader tilted its head once more, then lowered the staff into the sand. The hum softened to silence. Around them, the hunters stood still as carved obsidian. Malik looked from one to another, realizing that the choice of what came next rested entirely in that silence, whether mercy would answer mercy or not. The desert wind had softened, carrying with it a faint scent of mineral dust and distant rain. A paradox Malik couldn't place. He stood still as the leader of the Cathari pressed its staff into the sand. The vibration that followed was unlike the others. It rippled through the air, steady and deliberate, as though marking a decision. The circle of hunters broke formation. Slowly they began to move closer, no longer a wall of judgment, but a current of presence. Malik felt his breath catch. He looked from one figure to another, unsure if he'd just been condemned or forgiven. "Namusa," he whispered through his comm. "Record everything. This feels important." "Recording," the AI replied softly. Vocal frequencies stabilizing. "Emotional resonance detected. De-escalation." The leader gestured toward the ship, the motion slow but unmistakable, an invitation or command. Malik hesitated. "You want to see?" he asked, hand hovering over his chest. The alien inclined its head once. Malik nodded back. "Okay, but easy, all right?" "No weapons." When he stepped toward the ramp, two hunters followed at a distance, their armor emitting faint harmonic tones. The desert shimmered around them like liquid glass. Inside Uhuru's light, the temperature dropped abruptly, the ship's filters responding to the new entries. Malik knelt beside the cub. It was awake now, eyes wide, silver and trembling. "It's all right," he whispered. "They're here." The Cathari leader stepped closer, crouching with fluid grace. The alien extended a long, narrow hand and touched the cub's shoulder. The glow beneath its skin brightened instantly, pulsing with warmth. Malik's throat tightened at the sight. Whatever these beings were, they loved fiercely. The leader turned its gaze to him. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the alien pressed a palm to its own chest and released a sound. A deep rising tone layered with harmonics that made Malik's bones vibrate. He recognized its rhythm, the same pattern he'd heard earlier, but softer now, reverent. Namusa translated quietly, voice almost reverent itself. Approximate interpretation, debt honored. Life given, life shared. Malik frowned, repeating softly, "Debt honored." He pointed to the cub, then to himself. "You mean, you think I saved your kin?" The alien nodded once. Then, slowly, it drew a circular pattern in the air with its staff, the glowing line suspended for a moment before fading into the air. "The circle," Malik murmured, remembering his grandmother's lessons. "Everything returns. What you give, you receive." He smiled faintly. "Ubuntu." The leader's gaze lingered on him. "U-bun-tu," it echoed, broken but sincere. Something inside Malik cracked open. The sound was clumsy, imperfect, yet it carried meaning. He found himself smiling through the exhaustion. "Yeah," he said softly. "Ubuntu." The Cathari emitted a low, resonant note that spread through the entire group like a wave of sound and light. The cub responded with a weaker tone, imitating its elders. Malik felt the vibration course through the ship's floor, not violent, but alive. A living rhythm. He didn't understand the details, but he could feel it. Acceptance. Gratitude. A recognition that crossed species and stars. When the sound faded, the leader gestured for him to follow. Malik hesitated again, glancing back at his console. "Namusa, if I'm not back soon..." "I will maintain internal lockdown and track your biometrics," the AI interrupted. "Proceed, Malik, they do not appear hostile." He nodded. "Let's hope your sensors are right." As he stepped out into the desert once more, the heat met him like a living thing. The Cathari gathered in smaller groups now, communicating through subtle flashes of light across their armor. Malik noticed how each pattern seemed to tell a story. Grief, pride, curiosity, like an alien form of call and response. The leader stopped at a dune crest and waited for him. Together they looked toward the horizon, where storm clouds pulsed with faint electricity. Malik exhaled slowly. "You live out here," he said quietly, "among nothing but dust and wind." The alien looked at him and struck the sand gently with its staff. A cloud rose, catching sunlight, turning it briefly to gold. Then the leader pointed at Malik, then to the cub still inside the ship, and finally to the wide desert around them. "Shared," the alien said, voice low and deliberate. Malik's eyes widened. "Shared." He repeated the word, tasting its meaning. He wasn't just forgiven, he was invited. He didn't yet know what that invitation meant, only that mercy, once given, never returned the same way. Malik walked with the Cathari through the vast dunes, his boots sinking into the fine gold dust. The suns hung high above, one pale and cold, the other fierce and red, two hearts of light beating over a world that refused to die. Heat shimmered across the distance, bending the horizon into liquid motion. He had been traveling with them for hours now, guided by the leader he had silently named the Matron, though he still didn't know her true title. Behind them, Uhuru's light gleamed faintly, half buried in the sand, its hull reflecting the alien sunfire. Inside, the cub rested, guarded by Namusa's careful watch. Malik couldn't shake the feeling of being both honored and tested, a stranger among a people who read truth not from words, but from rhythm, tone, and silence. The Cathari moved in near-perfect unison, their steps soft, their breaths controlled. Each one carried a small carved talisman at their waist, shimmering like obsidian glass. Malik noticed they often touched these objects when they passed certain dunes, whispering faint tones under their breath. He caught one of the melodies and tried to mimic it softly. A few turned to look at him. The matron paused, her armor glinting green in approval. "They sing to the land," Malik murmured to himself, "like prayer." Namusa's voice crackled faintly in his ear. Cultural data suggests ceremonial navigation, possibly linked to memory transmission through vibration. Malik smiled. "You mean they tell stories to the sand?" The AI paused. "That is one interpretation." They reached a ridge where the wind blew harder. From its crest, Malik saw a valley of shimmering crystals, massive mineral spires jutting out like frozen lightning. The Cathari descended, their tones changing pitch as they entered the valley. The crystals responded, resonating faintly in echo. It was music unlike anything he'd ever heard, vast, living, layered with grief and pride. He felt the vibrations in his bones, and something in him softened. This was not a warlike people, this was a culture that carried memory and sound. The matron turned toward him and pointed at the crystals, then at her chest. "Karin," she said slowly, her voice deep as the desert wind. Malik repeated the word. "Karin." He gestured toward the formations. "Your home?" She tilted her head slightly, then pointed upward at the twin suns. "Home's all," she said, struggling to form the human syllables. "All breath." He nodded. "Home is everything that breathes." The phrase came out quietly, reverently. The matron released a tone so pure it vibrated through the sand. The others joined in, harmonizing until the valley itself seemed to hum with life. Malik felt tears rise unbidden. He thought of Earth, of Lagos, of music in open-air markets, of people moving in rhythm with each other. The connection struck him deeply. The same pulse of life that beat in the hearts of his ancestors echoed here, in this distant desert beneath two suns. When the harmony faded, the matron gestured for him to follow. They reached a cluster of hollow stones at the valley's edge. She struck one lightly with her staff, and it emitted a deep note. The sound was almost familiar, a bass frequency that made the air tremble. She turned to him and touched her chest. "Listen," she said, her accent thick but clear. Malik obeyed. The hum filled him. It was steady, grounding. "That's your heart," he whispered. The matron nodded. Then she touched his chest gently, the metal of her glove cold against his suit. "You too." Same sound. The words struck him like a revelation. The desert, the heat, the endless sky, and suddenly all of it felt connected, not through science but through something older, simpler. He drew in a long breath. Same sound. he repeated softly. The matron lowered her staff, her eyes reflecting both suns. Around them the hunters remained silent, their armor glinting in soft hues of gold. The meaning hung heavy between them. They were not enemies. They were witnesses of each other, of a truth deeper than language. Malik looked back toward the horizon where his ship waited. He thought of his orders, of the Federation's laws, of the boundaries he had already crossed. The thought sat heavy in his chest. Duty and empathy rarely walked the same road, and he was standing exactly where they collided. He turned toward the matron, his voice quiet. "What happens now?" She didn't answer in words. She only lifted her staff, struck the sand once, and began walking toward the horizon again. Malik followed. The suns moved slowly above them, one descending, one climbing, as if trading places in an eternal dance. And under their light, Malik felt the weight of new understanding settle over him like heat. Survival was never just about strength. It was about harmony. The suns hung lower now, casting twin shadows that stretched across the dunes like dark rivers. Malik returned to Uhuru's light with the matron and a small group of hunters at his side. The air shimmered with heat, but beneath it he felt something colder, unease. Nomusa's voice came through his earpiece, calm but edged with tension. "Malik, Federation satellites have shifted orbit. Your unauthorized transmissions may have been detected." He froze mid-step. "How long until contact?" "Unknown," the AI replied. "Telemetry suggests automated drones could arrive within 2 standard hours." Malik cursed softly under his breath. His mission logs, his medical scans of the cub, any of it could flag him for protocol violation. He looked toward the matron who stood watching him unreadable. "Nomusa," he said, forcing his voice steady, "seal off external comms." "No transmissions until I say." "Confirmed." He entered the ship. The air inside was cooler, laced with metallic tang. The cub, Imani, he had started calling it in his mind, lay weakly on the mat. Its glow had dimmed, breathing shallow and erratic. Malik knelt beside it, fingers trembling. "No, not now," he whispered. "You've come too far." Nomusa's sensors flickered alive. "Vital readings critical. Cellular collapse progressing. Cause unknown." He looked up sharply. Could it be the atmosphere? Unlikely. Internal contamination possible. Malik's heart sank. His medtech had been designed for humans, not this species. If the alien's physiology was reacting to the treatments, he might have made things worse. "Damn it," he muttered. "I can't lose them now." The matron entered quietly, her armor humming low. She saw the cub's fading light and released a tone so mournful it made the air vibrate. Malik didn't need translation. Grief spoke its own language. He turned to her. "I can help," he said, pointing to the medbay. "But my tools, they're forbidden by my laws." The matron tilted her head, confusion flickering across her features. Malik's throat tightened. How could he explain bureaucracy when life hung by a thread? He pressed a hand to his chest. "I will help," he said again, voice breaking. He opened the storage panel, revealing a sleek silver case marked with the Federation's seal. "Nomusa override code Delta 7. Malik," the AI warned, "activating this device violates Regulation 49.7. You will be subject to tribunal." "Override!" Malik shouted. The AI paused. "Override confirmed." The case hissed open. Inside lay a medcore, an adaptive nanofield device meant for emergency cellular repair. It was one of the most advanced tools in existence, and using it on alien biology was strictly forbidden. Malik's hands shook as he calibrated it, scanning the cub's vitals. He whispered to himself, "Grandma would have said laws mean nothing if they cost a life." He adjusted the settings, matching frequencies as best as he could. "Nomusa, engage stabilization sequence. Running protocol." A soft hum filled the cabin. The nanofield spread over the cub's body like mist, sinking into its translucent skin. Malik watched, breath held. The glow beneath its chest flickered, then steadied, faint but rhythmic. "It's working," he murmured. "Come on, little one. Stay with me." The matron knelt beside him, silent but trembling. She reached out and pressed her hand lightly to Malik's arm. Her touch was gentle, almost human. When she spoke, her voice was low, halting. "You give life." He looked up at her, eyes burning. "No, I'm just trying not to take it away." Minutes passed. The cub's breathing deepened. Its bioluminescence stabilized, glowing steady blue. Malik exhaled hard, sagging back in relief. Nomusa's tone softened. Readings normalized, vital stability achieved. Malik smiled weakly. "You stubborn little miracle." The matron stood, lifting her staff, releasing a tone of profound resonance. The hunters outside echoed her, filling the air with layered sound. It wasn't just celebration, it was something sacred. Gratitude turned into harmony, a living song that wrapped around the ship like a blessing. Malik leaned against the wall, exhausted, his chest heavy with both triumph and dread. He'd broken every rule the Federation had given him. When they arrived, and they would, there would be no hiding what he'd done. He looked at the cub, still glowing softly. "You better make this worth it," he whispered with a tired smile. Outside, the desert shimmered in twilight, and in the distance faint lights flickered across the sky, unmistakable, artificial, and approaching fast. Night had not yet fallen, but the light was fading fast. The twin suns bled into the horizon, painting the dunes in streaks of bronze and violet. Malik stood outside Uhuru's light, sweat cooling against his skin as the wind shifted. The Cathari had gathered around the ship again, their armor pulsing faintly in the dusk. The hum they emitted was softer now, solemn. The matron watched the sky, her head tilted, sensing something beyond the wind. Malik followed her gaze and saw them, specks of silver cutting through the atmosphere, too ordered to be natural, Federation drones. The first arrived like falling stars, slicing the air in silence before spreading into a perfect arc above the desert. His stomach tightened. "Nomusa," he said quietly. "Confirm identification." "Federation Class T reconnaissance units," the AI replied. "Multiple signatures inbound. Estimated ground contact in 4 minutes." Malik exhaled through clenched teeth. "They're early." The matron turned toward him, sensing his unease. Her armor flickered red, a pulse of warning. Malik met her eyes, understanding the danger instantly. The Federation's laws saw these people as potential contamination, not allies. If they found the cub, if they saw the medtech, he didn't want to imagine what would happen next. He took a step toward her. "Listen," he said urgently, gesturing to the dunes. "You have to hide. All of you." The matron's tone deepened. "Hide?" He pointed upward. "Danger." He mimed the drones descending. Machines. Hurt. The Cathari murmured among themselves in low harmonics. The matron's gaze hardened. "You bring danger." Her words cut deep. "I didn't mean to," he said, voice strained, "but they'll think you're a threat." Above, the hum of engines grew louder, the sky filled with metallic glints as the drones spread into formation. Malik could already hear the faint whine of scanning arrays. Nomusa's voice returned, sharper now. "Malik, your transponder signal has been located. The drones are preparing to deploy ground units." He looked at the matron, desperate. "Please, trust me one more time." For a moment, the silence between them was unbearable. Then the matron raised her staff and struck it into the sand. A wave of low resonance rippled through the ground. The Cathari responded instantly, fading back into the dunes until their dark forms vanished into the shimmering heat haze. Only she remained, her gaze fixed on Malik. He whispered, "Thank you." The first drone landed with a hiss of compressed air. Then another, and another. Dust spiraled around him as Federation insignias glowed blue across the metallic shells. Malik stood tall, forcing his breathing to steady. A synthesized voice crackled from a drone. "Engineer Malik Jarrow, identification confirmed. You are operating outside authorized contact protocols. Surrender for debrief." Malik wiped sweat from his brow. "I'm not leaving. Failure to comply will result in detainment." Behind him, the matron shifted her stance. The drones turned toward her, sensors flashing red as they registered a new life form. Malik stepped between them immediately. "Wait! She's not hostile!" The leading drone emitted a burst of static. "Unregistered biological detected. Threat level undefined. Proceeding with containment." Malik's pulse spiked. "No!" He raised his arms wide, placing himself in front of the matron. "You'll have to go through me first." There was a long pause, the kind of silence that lived between decisions. The drones hovered, assessing. The matron's armor glowed gold now, ready but calm. Her tone dropped to a low vibration that Malik could feel in his chest. It wasn't aggression, it was a warning. She wouldn't strike first, but she wouldn't yield. Nomusa spoke softly into Malik's ear. "Energy readings indicate defensive activation among Cathari. If conflict begins, containment will fail." Malik clenched his jaw. "Then we make sure it doesn't begin." He lowered his voice to the drone's translator frequency. "This is my mission," he said. "My responsibility. Stand down your threat assessment." "Violation logged," the drone responded. "Awaiting higher authorization." Malik looked up. More streaks of light crossed the sky, descending fast. Reinforcements. The Cathari re-emerged from the dunes, hundreds of them, forming a silent circle once again. The Federation machines adjusted their formation, whirring anxiously. Malik's heart thundered in his chest. "Don't move," he said under his breath to both sides at once. No one moves. The desert held its breath. The hum of alien resonance met the mechanical pulse of Federation drones, two languages vibrating against each other in tension. Malik stood in the middle, arms raised, the twin suns setting behind him. He wasn't a soldier or a savior. Just a man who'd fed a dying cub, and now stood between two worlds, praying neither would forget what that kindness had meant. The air between the Federation drones and the Cathari vibrated like a wire drawn too tight. The last rays of the suns bled into the desert, turning the sky deep crimson. Malik stood motionless at the center of it all, dust swirling around his boots, hands still raised. For several long breaths no one moved. Every sound, the faint hum of the drones, the whisper of alien resonance, blended into an unbearable tension. A human voice finally broke the silence. "Engineer Malik Jaro," it said, sharp and precise through the comm channel. "This is Commander Sloan of the Federation Peace Enforcement Division. You are in violation of Contact Protocol 1 through 7. Power down your vessel and await retrieval." Malik felt a rush of heat up his neck. "Commander Sloan," he replied evenly, "I've made contact with an intelligent species. They're not hostile. They're sentient, organized, and—" "You are not authorized to determine sentience," Sloan interrupted. "Stand down immediately. Your safety will be secured upon compliance." He almost laughed at the word safety. "My safety isn't the issue," he said. "There's a child here. One of theirs. I saved its life." Static filled the comm before Sloan's tone hardened. "Your actions have already contaminated the environment. Do you understand the severity of that?" Malik clenched his jaw. "I understand what mercy looks like, Commander. Maybe the Federation's forgotten." Behind him the matron stepped forward, her staff glowing faintly. Her tone was low but resonant, the sound carrying power even without translation. Malik could feel the meaning behind it. Authority, defiance, protection. Nomusa translated softly through his earpiece. "Approximate intent. This one belongs to none. He gave life. Life is shared." The Federation drones adjusted their formation, red sensors flickering nervously. Sloan's voice returned, cold and unyielding. "We cannot allow native entities to interfere with our personnel. Remove yourself from proximity immediately." Malik turned his gaze toward the hovering ships in the distance. "You can't threaten what you don't understand." "Engineer," Sloan warned, "stand down." The matron's armor flashed silver. The surrounding Cathari responded with harmonic unity, forming a protective circle around Malik and the cub. The drones repositioned, targeting sensors locking on. Malik raised his arms higher, stepping forward into the center of the tension. "Commander," he said, voice raised, "listen to me. You're about to fire on beings who have shown nothing but restraint. They didn't attack me. They protected me. They let me live when they could have ended this already. There was a pause. The desert wind carried the faint whistle of cooling engines. Then Sloane's tone softened slightly. Engineer Jarrow, you're exhausted. The stress of isolation may be impairing your judgment, Malik almost shouted. No, you think this is madness? Look around. This is what humanity was meant to be. Connection, respect, understanding. The matron turned toward him, her deep-set eyes glowing faintly. She lifted the cub, Imani, into her arms. The small creature blinked sleepily, light pulsing from within its chest. Malik's throat tightened. He faced the drones again. You see that, child? She's breathing because I broke your precious laws. You call that contamination. I call it compassion. Silence answered him. Finally, Sloane said, The council will have to evaluate your report. No decisions will be made on site. Malik frowned. Then bring them here. Let them see what's really happening. There was another pause. The Federation network hummed as if in deliberation. Then, after long seconds, Sloane replied, A diplomatic assessment team is en route. You will not interfere further until they arrive. Malik lowered his arms slowly. Agreed. The matron watched him closely. Her tone softened, layered with curiosity. Nomusa interpreted the meaning. Now we wait, Malik nodded. Yes, we wait. The Cathari eased their stance. The drones held position. Above them, the sky darkened fully, stars beginning to burn through the violet haze. For the first time since the standoff began, the desert exhaled. But Malik knew this fragile calm wasn't peace. It was negotiation, the kind born from fear and misunderstanding. The kind that could break with a single wrong word. He looked at Imani in the matron's arms and whispered to himself, Whatever comes next, we face it together. Nomusa's voice was soft, almost human. Two worlds, waiting to see if mercy can stand against protocol. Malik exhaled, eyes on the stars. Then let's make sure it can. The first wind carried the taste of iron. Malik lifted his head, feeling static crawl through the air. The Cathari stirred uneasily, their armor flickering between blue and gold. Even the drones shifted, sensors recalibrating. Overhead, dark clouds gathered at impossible speed, a sandstorm vast enough to swallow horizons. Nomusa's voice came through the comm, tense but calm. Meteorological anomaly detected. Wind speed increasing rapidly. Impact in 8 minutes. Malik frowned. That can't be natural. Affirmative. Thermal irregularities across 4 sectors. Probability of catastrophic sandfire ignition, 63%. He looked toward the Federation ships gleaming on the horizon, then at the matron, who had turned her face toward the storm. Lightning pulsed inside the wall of dust, not white but red. The desert seemed to glow with trapped fire. Malik spoke quickly into his transmitter. Commander Sloane, this storm's going to consume everything. We need to coordinate evacuation before... Engineer Jarrow, Sloane interrupted, voice sharp through the static. You will return to your vessel and await further orders. Do not interfere with local entities. He almost laughed at the absurdity. You're about to lose half your fleet to plasma winds, Commander. You think bureaucracy's going to stop the weather? The situation is under control, Sloane replied, though the quiver in his tone betrayed the lie. The matron stepped closer, her armor resonating in deep vibrations. Nomusa translated softly, The land remembers fire. We move together or we burn apart. Malik met her eyes. You're right, he said. Then to Nomusa, patch into Federation comms, broadcast this on all channels. Malik, do it! Nomusa's voice filled the open air, translating his words into clear frequencies. All units, this is Engineer Jarrow. The Cathari have storm shelters in the Crystal Valley. It's our only chance. Follow their lead or die trying to stand above them. A beat of silence. Then static flared, the kind that meant disbelief. You're out of line, Jarrow, Sloane barked. Malik didn't answer. He turned to the matron. Show me where. She struck her staff into the sand once, the vibration echoing through the dunes. The other Cathari responded instantly, their harmonics aligning in one rising tone. They began to move, swift and deliberate. Malik ran beside them, wind clawing at his suit. The drones followed, some reluctantly, others malfunctioning in the increasing static. Lightning tore through the sky, turning the sand into sheets of molten glass. He heard Sloane again over the comm, shouting orders to retreat. It was too late. Namusa's voice cut through the chaos. "Malik, your heart rate is elevated beyond safe parameters." "Good," he panted. "Means I'm still alive." The matron glanced back, the cub held close against her chest. Its light pulsed like a beacon, guiding the movement of hundreds through the choking storm. Malik could barely see, yet he followed that glow. Every step burned his lungs, but stopping wasn't an option. They reached the Crystal Valley, its spires humming with electric resonance. The Cathari struck them with their staffs, activating deep tones that vibrated through the ground. One by one openings appeared between the mineral formations, revealing hollow chambers, glowing with cool blue light. The matron gestured for Malik to enter. He hesitated, looking back toward the Federation ships. Half of them were gone, swallowed by the storm. The others flickered with failing energy shields. "They won't make it," he said softly. Namusa's voice lowered. "You can still send coordinates for survival." He nodded, fingers flying over his wristpad. "Broadcasting safe zone to all channels. If they ignore it now, that's on them." The matron's tone deepened again. Namusa translated, "You risk your own to save ours." Malik gave a weak smile. "No, I'm risking us both to prove we're the same." The wind screamed, and the sky erupted in red lightning. Malik stumbled into the shelter, the matron following. The door sealed behind them with a thunderous vibration, cutting off the roar outside. Inside, the air was cool, humming with faint resonance. Malik collapsed to his knees, chest heaving. The cub stirred in the matron's arms, its glow steady once more. Namusa broke the silence. External readings stabilized. Storm containment achieved. Survivors minimal. Malik closed his eyes, grief and relief twisting inside him. "Then we did it," he whispered. The matron knelt beside him, touching her staff to the floor. The tone that followed was soft, solemn, not victory, but remembrance. Malik listened in silence, feeling its meaning resonate through him. Life given, life preserved, life shared. Outside, the firestorm raged on, erasing tracks and ships and pride alike. But in the shelter beneath the twin suns, two civilizations had survived, not by dominance, but by trust. When the storm finally broke, Ngari Prime was silent. The dunes had shifted into new shapes, the horizon reborn in strange symmetry. Malik stood at the entrance of the crystal shelter, breathing the heavy, scorched air. Above, the suns burned pale and distant, like exhausted gods. Around him, the Cathari emerged one by one, brushing sand and ash from their armor. They were alive. Against every calculation, they had survived. Namusa's voice came through the comm, subdued. External scans confirm Federation signal loss across multiple sectors. Only 3 drones remain operational. Malik exhaled slowly. "And Commander Sloane?" "Unconfirmed. Communication relay destroyed." He stared at the horizon, trying to feel something other than relief. The matron approached, the cub nestled against her shoulder. Its glow had softened to a gentle rhythm, like a heartbeat at rest. She raised her staff, emitting a deep, sustained tone. The surviving Cathari answered in harmony, a song of mourning, gratitude, and rebirth all at once. Malik listened in silence, letting the sound wash over him. For a moment, he could almost imagine his grandmother's voice woven in the melody, reminding him that every ending is just another kind of beginning. When the last note faded, the matron turned to him. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflective as water. "You fight Skyfire," she said haltingly. "Save many." He shook his head. "We saved each other." She tilted her head, considering this. Then she touched the base of her staff to the sand, tracing a slow circle. "Ubuntu." Malik's throat tightened. She didn't know the word's history, but she understood its meaning. "Namusa," he said softly, "record everything you can. These people deserve to be known for who they are, not what the Federation assumes. The AI hesitated. Malik, you're aware that unauthorized data transmission could result in disciplinary action. I'm past that point, he interrupted. If they erase this, they erase truth itself. Namusa fell silent, then responded with quiet conviction. For recording. The matron's tone deepened again, almost questioning. Malik met her gaze. It means memory, he said, pointing to his head, then to his heart. Story. Her armor shimmered blue in understanding. Story. Live, she repeated slowly. Malik smiled faintly. Yes, story lives. He turned his gaze upward. The Federation drones hovered at the edge of the valley, their lights flickering uncertainly. One of them descended, projecting a damaged holographic image, Commander Sloane's face, distorted but recognizable. His voice was ragged through static. Engineer Jarrow, Federation Command has reviewed your transmissions. You are ordered to surrender all alien biological data and cease unauthorized contact immediately. Malik squared his shoulders. Commander, those alien biologicals saved my life. They saved yours too, whether you admit it or not. You endangered the Federation, Sloane said. You disobeyed direct orders, compromised isolation protocols. Because compassion doesn't fit inside your regulations, Malik snapped. Because empathy isn't in your mission brief. The hologram flickered, static, crawling across Sloane's features. If you transmit any classified data, you'll face permanent revocation of citizenship rights. Malik felt anger boil beneath his calm. Then take them. Take the rights, the rank, the title. None of that means anything if we lose what makes us human. Namusa's voice entered quietly. Malik, recording uplink initiated. Message ready for global relay. He took a deep breath, looking toward the Cathari. Then let the truth speak. His voice steadied as he spoke into the transmitter. To anyone who hears this, I stand on Ngari Prime with a people who've taught me what the Federation forgot. They live by harmony, by reciprocity, by the pulse of shared existence. We can either learn from them or repeat our own arrogance until it kills us. He ended the transmission. Silence followed, long, heavy, absolute. The hologram of Sloane flickered once more, then vanished. The remaining drones turned skyward and began to retreat. Malik watched them disappear into the light. He lowered his head, breathing slowly. The matron placed a hand on his shoulder. You speak truth. He met her gaze, weary but certain. I had to, even if they call it betrayal. Her eyes softened. Not betrayal. Choice. Malik smiled faintly. Yeah. A choice. Behind them the cub stirred, releasing a faint hum that rippled through the valley. It was a new tone, soft, unsteady, but filled with promise. Malik looked toward the horizon, where the storm's remains glowed red in the distance, and knew this wasn't the end of judgment. It was only the beginning of understanding. The days after the storm passed like echoes. The dunes no longer sang with the same fierce wind. Instead, they hummed softly under the suns, as if the planet itself was exhaling. Malik had begun to rebuild the systems aboard Uhuru's light, not for departure, but for communication. The Federation was silent now, not in defeat but in watchful calculation. He knew they were listening, even if they wouldn't respond. He stood outside the ship with the matron and the cub beside him. Imani was growing stronger each day, her glow bright and steady. The Cathari had returned to their nomadic routines, yet something between them and Malik had changed, a quiet trust, fragile but real. He looked at the matron and said, We can't keep speaking through machines and guesses. We need to truly talk. Her head tilted. Talk? Malik tapped his temple, then his heart. Words sound meaning. He pointed between them. You and me. She considered this, the faint light across her armor, flickering like thought. Show, she said finally. He nodded. Namusa, initiate frequency resonance module. Ready, the AI replied. Adjusting harmonics for linguistic bridge attempt. Malik took a breath. The project had begun 3 nights earlier, inspired by something simple yet ancient: rhythm. The way the Cathari communicated reminded him of drumming back home, of ancestral patterns used to tell stories across distances before words could be written. Sound carried emotion, intent, history. He struck his hand lightly against the side of the ship, creating a low metallic tone. Then another, higher, forming a rhythm. The matron watched intently. After a pause, she struck her staff into the sand, producing a resonant note that echoed his pattern. Malik smiled. "Good," he said. "Now, you mean you," he tapped his chest, "and I mean me." She mimicked him carefully. "You, me." Namusa recorded the sequence. Pattern correlation, 78%. Emerging syntactic structure detected. For hours they continued, exchanging tones, gestures, words. The process was messy, full of missteps and laughter. Real laughter, even from the matron, whose deep, layered chuckle sounded like stone rolling in water. Malik felt alive in a way he hadn't since childhood, when language had felt like discovery instead of rule. At one point, the matron asked through mixed rhythm and speech, "Why help us? You're sky people, angry." Malik paused. "Because anger isn't the same as right." He placed his hand over his heart. "Where I'm from, we say, 'I am because we are.' No one stands alone." The matron tilted her head, repeating the phrase carefully. "I am because we are." She struck her staff once, the tone rich with agreement. "Good sound." Malik grinned. "Yes, good sound." Imani, curious, added her own chirping hum to the rhythm. Malik laughed and joined her, creating a playful sequence. The matron joined in too, and soon the 3 of them were surrounded by harmonic echoes bouncing off the dunes. A strange, beautiful music that was neither human nor alien, but something entirely new. "Namusa," Malik said, still smiling. "Record this as the first entry in the Ubuntu Frequency Project." "Entry created," the AI replied. Designation: Shared Resonance Protocol. By nightfall, the sky deepened into violet shadow, and stars shimmered through the heat haze. Malik sat cross-legged in the sand, while the matron stood beside him, looking up. "Stars," she said, forming the word carefully. "Stars," he echoed. "Your people have names for them." She pointed to one that glowed faint green. "Cthulhu." "The one that watches." Malik followed her gaze. "Back home we'd call that one Olokunzai, the Deep Watcher. Maybe our ancestors named the same light and never knew." The matron's eyes glowed faintly. "Maybe same heart." He smiled softly. "Maybe same heart." Namusa interrupted, voice quiet. "Malik, Federation relay reactivated. Incoming broadcast request." He stood slowly, tension returning. "From who?" "Unknown, signal encrypted under diplomatic protocol." Malik looked toward the stars again, then at the matron. "They're coming back to talk," he said quietly. The matron's voice rumbled low. "Talk or take?" Malik hesitated. "We'll find out soon enough." The desert was silent again, but beneath that silence lay something irreversible, a rhythm neither government nor storm could unmake. The bridge had been built, not from metal or code, but from the oldest language in existence, the sound of connection. The next morning dawned quiet and cool, the kind of stillness that only comes after great storms or great change. Malik stood on a dune, looking over the valley where the Cathari had begun to rebuild their camp. Crystals caught the light, scattering it in 1,000 directions, like the sky had descended to rest among them. Imani followed close to his side, her steps small but confident now. Each pulse of her glow matched the rhythm of Malik's heart. He looked down at her and smiled. "You're tougher than I gave you credit for," he said. She responded with a soft hum, a melody that had become her version of laughter. Namusa's voice drifted gently through his earpiece. "Malik, Federation channels remain silent. However, telemetry indicates long-range vessels entering Ngari Prime's orbit." "So they're still watching," he muttered. "Waiting to see what we'll do." "Yes," Namusa replied. "Observation without intervention." Malik shook his head. Story of human history, isn't it? Watch first, understand later. The matron approached, her staff glinting under the morning light. Sky people come? She asked, forming the words carefully. Malik nodded. Maybe, but not yet. Her armor shimmered faint gold. You... fear? He hesitated. A little, not for me, for what they'll do if they can't see what I see. She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, Then show them. Malik blinked. Show them? She touched the sand with her staff. You make bridge. Now walk it. He stared at her, realization dawning slowly. She was right. Building understanding wasn't enough if it stayed buried here in the desert. The Federation needed to hear, to feel what he had learned, and so did humanity. He turned to Namusa. Pull up the last sequence of the Ubuntu frequency. I want to broadcast it planet-wide. Malik, the AI cautioned. Such transmission would violate multiple security. Do it, he said firm. There was a pause. Then, transmission channel open. The air around them filled with low hums as the system engaged. Malik closed his eyes and began tapping a slow rhythm on the hull of his ship. The matron joined him, striking her staff in counterbeat. Imani added her soft, crystalline tones. Together their harmonies merged into something vast. Not a song, not quite speech, but an invocation. Namusa translated the frequencies automatically, layering them into human words. We are not conquerors. We are not gods. We are the children of those who looked to the sky and wondered. Every world we touch teaches us who we are. The matron's resonance deepened, folding around the message like a heartbeat. Namusa continued, We share our breath. We share our story. Life is not owned. It is given. The words carried into the atmosphere, rising through invisible channels toward the ships in orbit. Malik could almost picture them up there, officers listening in disbelief, scientists analyzing data they couldn't classify, bureaucrats wondering whether to censor or celebrate. When the last tone faded, silence fell once more. Malik opened his eyes. The matron regarded him with quiet pride. You speak truth for both. He nodded. Truth is the only thing left worth speaking, Namusa interrupted gently. Incoming response from Federation Command. Malik's stomach tightened. Let's hear it. A voice, calm and deliberate, filled the air. Engineer Malik Jaro, your unauthorized transmission has reached every listening post within range. The Council is reviewing your message. You are hereby placed under provisional diplomatic status until further decision. Malik blinked in surprise. Provisional diplomatic status? Affirmative, until the Council determines next contact protocol. The line went silent. Malik exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping his chest. Diplomat, that's a new one. The matron tilted her head, curious. You leader now? He smiled faintly. Maybe just a voice. Imani leaned against his leg, her light warm against his skin. The suns had climbed higher now, their heat gentle rather than cruel. Malik looked at the vast expanse before him, the dunes, the crystals, the endless sky, and thought of the ancestors who had once crossed oceans with nothing but hope and direction in their hearts. He whispered, Guess we're still crossing, Grandma, just different seas. Namusa's tone softened. Transmission logged. Entry titled, Echoes of the Ancestors. Malik looked at the matron, her silhouette etched against the light, and felt the weight of history settle, not as burden but as continuity. Two worlds now carried the same rhythm, the same hum of shared existence. And somewhere above, humanity finally began to listen. The day of gathering began with still air and silver light. Ngari Prime seemed to pause, holding its breath as if aware of the weight that moment carried. Malik stood at the center of the valley, his boots buried in the warm sand. Around him, hundreds of Cathari moved in precise formation, their armor glowing in hues of green and gold. The Federation envoy had finally arrived, 3 ships gliding silently overhead, their presence both a promise and a threat. Malik adjusted the comm at his wrist. "Nomusa, open diplomatic channel." "Channel open," the AI replied. The voice that came through was steady and measured. "This is Councillor Ayen of the Federation. Engineer Jaro, we have received your transmissions and your proposal. You will mediate this meeting under joint observation." Malik swallowed hard. Understood. He looked at the matron who stood beside him, staff in hand. Her presence radiated calm authority. The cub, Imani, stood in front of her, eyes bright, chest glowing softly. Malik drew a slow breath. "Let's make history," he murmured. The matron turned to him. "History?" He smiled faintly. "Story that lives long." She nodded once, striking her staff into the sand. A deep resonance spread through the valley, and every Cathari responded in kind, forming a vast circle around them. Malik's heart pounded as the sound built, a living harmony. The ships above hesitated, their engines dimming as if listening. "Councillor Ayen," Malik said into the comm, "you're hearing it now. That's not aggression. That's unity. They call it the Circle of Two Suns. It's how they honor life shared, not life taken." There was silence on the other end before Ayen responded. "Our readings indicate structured frequencies, intent unclear." "It's not meant to be clear through machines," Malik said. "You have to feel it." The matron began to speak in her deep, resonant tone, words half sung, half felt. Malik translated softly for the open channel. "She says we are not strangers. We are mirrors. She says the storm took what pride built and left only truth. She says we stand or fall together." The harmony swelled, growing more complex. Malik raised his head, his voice rising with it. "This isn't just about survival. It's about remembering what we once were. Explorers, dreamers, builders of bridges, not barriers." A long pause followed. Then a second voice joined the transmission, one Malik didn't recognize. "This is Fleet Captain Mora. If these entities are peaceful, as you claim, they must be willing to formalize non-aggression." Malik turned to the matron, explaining as simply as he could. She considered his words, then struck the sand again. The circle of Cathari shifted, creating an opening toward the Federation ships, a gesture Malik instantly understood. He smiled, speaking into the comm. "There's your answer." They offer the circle open, a sign of trust. The comm remained quiet. Then slowly a light descended from one of the ships, a projection of the Federation insignia, rotating above the valley. Malik felt his throat tighten. It wasn't surrender. It was acknowledgement. The matron turned toward him, her eyes reflecting both suns. "Circle complete?" Malik nodded, his voice thick. "Complete." The Cathari released a final unified tone, deep, resonant, and endless. It echoed across the dunes, rising until it blended with the hum of the ships. Even Nomusa's processors seemed to hesitate, registering something beyond logic. When the sound faded, Malik felt an ache in his chest he couldn't name. It wasn't sorrow or triumph, it was recognition. Humanity had met its reflection and found humility there. He turned toward the matron. "What will you call this day?" She tilted her head. "Day of Return." He nodded slowly. "A good name." The cub approached him, her glow bright and joyful. She pressed her small hand against his palm. "Home," she said carefully. Malik's eyes burned. "Yeah," he whispered. "Home." As the suns began to set, their light merged into a single band of gold stretching across the valley. The circle remained unbroken, not of command or conquest, but of understanding. For the first time, Malik believed the Federation might learn that peace wasn't a policy. It was a choice renewed every day by every act of compassion. He looked toward the horizon and thought of his grandmother's voice once more. "We are because we are together." And in that moment, under two suns and one shared sky, the words finally felt complete. The day after the Circle of Two Suns was sealed, the valley was quieter than usual. The Federation ships still hovered in low orbit, their sleek silhouettes sharp against the morning sky. The Cathari had begun their rituals again, not as a group of warriors, but as a community, reaffirming what had been almost lost. Their sounds filled the valley like ancient echoes, vibrations that held the weight of history. Malik stood at the edge of the shelter, watching them. The weight of the last few days had settled in his chest like stone, but there was no regret, only quiet resolve. Imani's small hand tugged at his sleeve, her voice clear and soft. "You go now." Malik smiled down at her, his heart softening in a way it hadn't for a long time. "Not yet." "You stay?" "For now," he said, kneeling to her level. "I need to make sure you're all right first, all of you." Her glow brightened, a steady, pulsing light that seemed to respond to his words. She reached out and touched his chest, mimicking the gesture he'd made so many times in their communication. "Good," she said simply. He nodded, looking back toward the Federation ships. There was no easy answer to what came next. There were still the skeptics, the officials in the Federation, who would resist the idea that compassion could rebuild what had been broken. But for the first time, Malik felt that the future was no longer a weight to be feared. It was something to be built. Namusa's voice cut through the moment. "Malik, incoming message from Federation Command." He stood up, taking a slow breath before answering. "Go ahead." The voice that came through was not the cold, distant tone of Commander Sloan, but the calm, authoritative voice of Counselor Ayen. "Engineer Jaro, your transmission has been reviewed. The Council has decided to extend an invitation to you and the Cathari to discuss a new framework for interspecies cooperation." Malik froze. "What does that mean exactly?" "We are proposing a dialogue on peaceful cohabitation and mutual benefit," Ayen continued. "This will not erase past actions, but it is a step toward understanding. We hope to open an official discussion on how the Federation can support the Cathari without forcing them into isolation." Malik's heart beat faster. "Are you saying they'll be allowed to stay? We are offering the opportunity for the Cathari to share their knowledge with us. This does not guarantee full integration into the Federation, but it is a significant change in our stance." Malik felt the words settle in his chest like a spark, small but powerful. "And me? You will be recognized as a mediator under Federation protection. Your role will be to ensure that both sides respect the new agreement." The weight of it hit him all at once, the responsibility of the role, but also the immense opportunity. For the first time in his life, Malik Jaro was not just a voice in the void. He was the bridge. He looked at Imani, the cub now standing tall beside him, her small hand still gently resting against his chest. "They'll have their place here," he said softly, "and we'll have ours." Namusa's voice was gentle, almost wistful. "Malik, your message has been heard. Across the galaxy, voices are stirring to meet you." Malik smiled, though it was bittersweet. "It's not my message, Namusa, it's ours." He turned back toward the valley where the Cathari stood as one, their voices rising in unison. The Federation ships were still there, silent observers. They had come to judge, but now they would listen. The circle was beginning to widen, not just between humans and aliens, but within the heart of humanity itself. The desert air grew warmer as the suns climbed higher, but there was no fear. Only the knowledge that everything was connected now, from the smallest pulse of light to the vast stretches of stars above. "Come," Malik said, rising to his feet. "Let's go see what they've built today." Imani held out her hand to him, and as he took it, he realized that the legacy they had started was not just the bridge between two worlds. It was the legacy of everything they could be, if they simply chose to see each other truly for who they were. And in that moment, the future was no longer uncertain. It was a path they would walk together,